Collins TD came all the way down from Dublin tonight for Karen's launch, and we appreciate it greatly. Thanks, Joan. Yeah. So Joan is going to give us a few words, and then Karen is going to give us lots of words.
Not too many. Not too many.
And after that, then we'll have a cup of tea, coffee, or a glass of wine if that's your choice.
Yeah.
So. Over to you, Joan.
Okay, I'll only take a few moments because I think this is Karen's night, and Karen's going to have to convince you to come out and support her over the next 3 weeks up to the 24th of May to, if you can, canvass with her, talk to your friends, talk to your families, talk to people in shops, talk to people in the school gates, talk to people, you know, walking down the street to say, vote number 1, Karen Doyle. I will say 2 things. The first thing I really want to say is that I'm very proud to be here tonight in a lovely part of the country that I do actually love, in Cobh, and to be with Karen's family, our dad here, Noel, and everything, and our brothers and our sons. And also I'm very proud to launch, to be part of the launch of Karen's campaign over the next couple of weeks. I am going to say 2 things, that we live in a country of 2 halves, where you have a lot of poverty, where you have no access, little or no access to service, or health service, education, where autistic children are finding it difficult to get into schools, get services that they need for their children. We also live in a society where housing is becoming an impossible thing to actually live in, get a roof over your head. We've been told all the time by Fine Gael and Owen Murphy that the supply is needed. That's what we need. We need to build more houses. But yet when they are beginning to build more houses, we're seeing at least 5 out of every 10 houses built being bought up in cash by private investors, including Blackstone and these REITs that are coming in and like vultures and buying up homes all over the country. We also see in our health services huge waiting lists for access. We're seeing our GPs being depleted, harder to get onto a GP list at the moment, are becoming more difficult. We live in the recent Social Justice Ireland brought out a report of the poverty profiled people in the communities, where 15.7% of Ireland's population live below the poverty line. These are absolute facts. Where 760,000 people in Ireland live below the poverty line. Children under 16 are 23% of that. Students and school children are 18.4% of that. Workers working in the workplace are 14.3% of that. And there's an ESRI report done recently where they profiled the fact that 25% of the workforce actually get below the minimum wage, which is just absolutely an unbelievable figure to actually look at, because it means people are out there trying to pay for services, trying to pay their way, trying to pay rents and everything, and they're a quarter of that workforce, of our workforce, earns below the living wage. And yet, we can employ barristers and solicitors to go to the courts to stop Apple being forced to pay the money that they've actually robbed out of this country. We're a country that invites all the vulture funds and invites big companies and Googles and the Facebooks and all them to our country, and to get tax breaks, huge tax breaks. And also over the last number of years, one of the key policies of Fine Gael has been, backed by Fianna Fáil, has been to transfer 10 billion worth of tax cuts from your pockets to the highest earners in this country. 10 billion. Just think of what that could do for our services, for our hospitals, for our education, for our autistic children that need access to those services. So we do live in a world of 2 halves, and I think my experience with Karen has been around the water charges movement, the fantastic water charges movement that pushed this government back a number of years ago, and also then through the Right to Change, when we discussed the Right to Change policy document, which is here tonight, policy and principles for a progressive Irish government, 10 policy principles: right to education, health, debt justice, housing, jobs and decent work, right to a proper environment. Policies that are basic human rights, but we'll have to struggle and fight to get those rights, because this government will not hand over these rights easily to us as a community in Cobh or in Cork or in Galway or in Donegal or Dublin. We'll have to fight for them. So I'm going to finish up by saying that Karen is a fantastic representative and a fantastic candidate in the United Communities. She's our secretary, and her work ethic and her commitment to her community is absolutely second to none. And you'd be very, very proud if Karen gets elected, which I know she would, with your support in actually talking to your communities, talking to your families and friends and relatives. And she'll be a powerful councillor for Cobh if elected on the 4th of May. And it's down to people knocking on doors and talking to people and talking to their friends. I'll finish up on this note. The best of luck. The best of luck to you. I hope you will have Karen as a councillor at the end of the 24th of May. And I think Karen will be part of a progressive movement right across this country. We have 14 candidates standing from the United Communities branch that we are part of. James Connolly once used an expression and said that any workers in struggle, fighting for rights, fighting against injustice and that, but the only way you can do that is linking that movement in with the trade union movement, organised labour, because other than that you're fighting with one hand behind your back. And that's what we have done. I'm very proud that we've done that. We've linked in with Unite the Union, with the United Communities branch, so that we can actually link those two forces together to try and fight for change. The one thing I do want to say, you were all probably part of the Right to Water movement. In the Dáil we put through a bill in 2016. I put forward that bill to keep our water in public ownership and against privatisation. That's why you all stood on the water meters, because we all knew that every water meter that went in was the next step to privatisation. So we have that bill going through the Dáil. There's deliberate kicking the can down the road of Owen Murphy and Fine Gael, even though they're saying they don't agree with privatisation. They're kicking the can down the road on this bill. With the backing of Fianna Fáil, with the implicit backing of Fianna Fáil, we had a situation where we had a backing committee for third stage, they called it, where you progress the bill to the next stage into the Dáil. And Fianna Fáil was complicit with Fine Gael to push that off the agenda again and push it down the line. So when you have Fianna Fáilers knocking on your door and saying, we're supporting, we know the Irish water, we're opposed to Irish water, we're opposed to privatisation, they are complicit, absolutely complicit with this government to kick that can down the road, and hopefully, I'd say they hope that the Dáil will fall before that legislation goes through. But we'll come back, and we'll come back with a vengeance in relation to getting that through the Dáil again if that happens, and we'll continue to fight to get it onto the agenda over the next period of time. So listen, have a good night, enjoy the evening, ask questions, there's no problem, we just keep it very informal. And I'd like to welcome Karen to say a few words to your